Welcome to Draft Sickos on the No Ceilings NBA YouTube channel and podcast feed. This is the show where we discuss everybody from the biggest of names to the deepest of sleepers, which is exactly what we'll be doing tonight on our tiered My Guys episode as we wrap up the 2025 NBA draft cycle. I'm your host, Maxwell Baumbach, and I'm joined at this time by the real star of the show, Stephen Gillespie. Stephen, how are you doing today?
Maxwell, I'm awesome. I'm excited for this. This is going to be a really fun way to kind of close out this season. And man, like you said, this is our last show before the 2025 NBA draft, which is awesome, but kind of sad at the same time.
Yeah, it's surreal. It always is getting to the end of the draft cycle. So that's where we're at. We are going to be here next week in some capacity with a recap show. And then I'm going to have a recap column Monday on the undrafted free agent class as well. And then tomorrow, Mondays and tomorrow, we all have a Jace Richardson column out as well. But before we kick everything off, I want to say, go to NoCeilingsNBA.com, buy the NoCeilingsNBA.com NBA draft guide for 2025. It's $15. We cover 100 players in there. If you're just dropping in now and you want to learn about everybody in this draft class, we've got like 4 pages of analysis on 100 guys in that draft guide. So go check out the draft guide if you haven't already. It's $15, NoCeilingsNBA.com. You get a discount if you're a No Ceilings Plus subscriber, which also gets you access to bonus content throughout the year. If you want to get deeper into the draft, that's a great place to start. Let's talk a little bit about what we're doing tonight. So this is a similar show to what we did last year, where every year we like to talk about our guys in the draft class, the guys that we like a little bit more than most. Maybe we're just rooting for them. Just players that we sort of have a preference for, whether it's we have them ranked higher than consensus or there's players that we really like. We did this list past year. We're going to do it again this year. And we're going to kind of break it into tiers. So we took the previous big board that we've done for No Ceilings. There's going to be a new board on the site this week. So stay tuned for that. But on the early June big board, we went through that and we took our favorite players in the top 10, 11 to 20 range, 21 to 30 range, and then like early second round, late second round, and then our favorite undrafted player based on those projections. Stephen, I guess we will kick it off with one of your guys. But before we get into that, did you feel like this is a year where you had more or less guys than normal? Because I feel like this year I have a real plethora of guys that I've really enjoyed. Like I feel like as a whole, I've really enjoyed this class.
It's weird because I like certain guys in ranges, and like that's what this kind of exercise allowed me to think about is like at the top I liked it. Our second tier that we're going to talk about, I really, really dig it. Our third tier was like, I don't know. And then from there, I was like, okay, yeah, there's still plenty of guys. Like we have guys in our undrafted range that you and I both love a lot. And there's people like we only pick one, and there was quite a few that we could have gone from. So I would say, yeah, like in terms of volume, I have a lot more guys in my guy chest this year.
For sure. So who was your guy in the top 10 of this year's draft?
Yeah. For those who listened last year, Maxwell and I actually had another tier that we did where we picked our number one pick because there was like, really like 6 dudes that could have legit gone number one last year. Mm-hmm. So this year it's a foregone conclusion that Cooper Flagg is the number one pick. And to continue the trend of him being the most disrespected prospect within the draft community in terms of like, we don't talk about him. Mm-hmm. I'm not picking him from this exercise either, just because he's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Tre Johnson. And this is my guy because Maxwell, I'm sure you remember, but when we would get in our war rooms for months, I was like, I legit think that Tre Johnson has potential top 3 upside in this class. And when I started doing that, I didn't feel like that was a very popular opinion. But now Maxwell, as you could see, he's getting like top 3, top 4 projected spots within mocks. And that makes me feel a little good. You know, I wrote about him earlier in the year. And we've podcasted about him quite a bit. This is a guy that you and I differ on, which kind of makes this a little bit of a fun selection. I know that you think that the shot gives him a little bit of safety.
Oh, totally.
I see superstar upside with him, which is where I think you and I probably differ a little bit. Mm-hmm. But Tre Johnson out of Texas, the freshman, kind of guard, maybe wing, long term, 19 years old, almost 6'5", barefoot, 190 pounds, with a 6'10" wingspan. Maxwell was getting up like 20 points per game, almost 3 assists, shot almost 40% from deep, 87% from the line. I just think that there's obviously safety with the shooting. He was 39.7% from deep on 11.5 threes per 100 possessions. So gives me a lot of confidence that that three-point shot is going to be there. He shot almost 39% on open threes and over 35% on dribble jumper threes. So there's versatility within his game. And his handle, I don't think, is discussed quite enough because he is a scorer right now above all else, but his handle is pretty sophisticated for his age, and especially being a freshman in the SEC. I came away impressed more times than not just seeing how well he handled the ball. He was in the 74th percentile at the rim, which, gives me I don't know if I got that number correct, actually, for Tre Johnson. But
yeah, he struggled a bit at the rim this year. He didn't get there a ton.
Yeah, he didn't get there quite a ton, but I know that is an area where people have concerns, and I get it. I will say, though, to contextualize, Texas was a mess this year, so much so that their head coach got fired. And for being a freshman walking into this team that was pretty senior laden, like everybody understood that their best shot at winning was to get Tre Johnson involved on offense. So I think that as he gets stronger, he'll kind of flesh out. But right now, I think the reasons to be cautious with him are that finishing, the defense not being super consistent, and then just being a little bit thin. But once he continues to add weight, his frame suggests that he will. I think that he'll be able to at least become net neutral in some of these areas, if not slightly above neutral.
Yeah, I love the shot. Like I said, I'm not the biggest Tre Johnson guy in the world, but like early on in the year, even when they were playing like garbage teams, I remember doing a podcast with Mike Gribanoff, and both of us were just like, "Oh yeah, no, like he's certainly an NBA player." Like it was clear pretty early on in the year, like this dude is an NBA player. Really good shooter, like lights out, especially off screens. Like he's one of those guys where, and I think in the NBA, like the version of this is like, I think it's probably Ben Shepherd, where he's a good player for the Pacers, but like you almost wish they would use him off movement more because he was better off movement at Belmont, where with the Pacers, it's a lot more spot up and cut, which like for the Pacers, it works. The Pacers are about to play Game 7 of the NBA Finals, but it's one of those things where for him, it's like, well, if you were to, ever be traded or something like that, that's an area where we could add additional value. Tre like came off screens a decent amount and came off handoffs a decent amount, but it was much more like spot up, initiating through pick and roll, initiating out of ISOs and things like that, that it's a very easy scale back for Tre. Like you can very easily just like look at his game and be like, okay, could he, if he has to become a movement shooter, he has to become more of an off-ball player, can he do it? And in his case, I think the question is certainly. Like I think there's no doubt about that. Like the floor is rock solid. I'm just a little lower on the ceiling. I do think his passing got better throughout the year. Early on in the year, he was in like the James Bouknight club of like super high usage, super high assist. And there are still times where he'll have two defenders on him and he'll force a tough mid-range too. Like that stuff is going to have to go away. But it happened far less often throughout the year, which was good to see. I like when guys get better throughout the season. I think the defense is like fine. Like I don't think it's bad. I think it's like fine at the point of attack. He's not super quick laterally, but like you said, like the frame's good. I think the frame will continue to get better. Lateral agility is fine. Uses his chest well. It's okay. The off-ball stuff isn't bad. It's just that, like, I think that's where you first see the lack of athleticism, is that he's not a guy that's going to dart passing lanes. He's not going to fly over from the weak side and block somebody. He's not going to super spring off the floor to contest a jump shot and get his hands on it. Like, it's just a very lackluster defensive game, but not even like in a, I don't mean lackluster in a he can't defend way. It's more,
he's not like, a cone.
Yeah, it's fine. It's totally fine. My concern with the star stuff offensively is like I just don't think he separates particularly well. I think that's going to get only harder. And as much as I believe in the shot making, that's why I sort of believe in him more in like that Buddy Hield type of role with a little more passing juice to him if it really clicks, as opposed to like a Devin Booker type thing. Is I just don't think he has that level of initiation. He doesn't draw a lot of fouls. He's really contact averse at the rim. He settles for really bad angles at the rim. That was something we saw in the high school tape as well. I just don't think that he's going to get to his spots inside the arc and convert well enough to like hit a super high end outcome. But I think he's going to be good. Like I think I ended up with him at like 7 on my board. I think
Oh,
Tre's
you
a
hate
really
his
good
guts.
player.
Yeah.
Yeah, I despise him, and I'm actually rooting for him to fail. I'm kidding.
Oh.
No.
You finally get someone to admit it.
Yeah, no. I like Tre Johnson a lot. I think Tre Johnson's going to be a really good pro, and I think he's a guy that, like, if you were to play a game where you're like, name guys in a row, and like the first person to lose is the first person who names someone who's not in the league 10 years from now, like, you would pick Tre Johnson pretty early on in that game. Like, his game just,
That's
it
a fun
feels
show idea
timeless
for next
in a way.
time. Yeah.
Like, yeah, these guys always stick around. If you're 6'6" and you can really shoot, you can move the ball well enough and not turn it over, which is super key. Like, I think that's another area where he deserves more credit, is like, do I wish he read the floor better? Yes. Do I wish he looked to make more passes? Yes. But your point about the handle, like, it's not wide, it's not loose. Guys don't get into it. Like, the shooters that kind of stick, even if they end up being just shooters, match a lot of what Tre Johnson has, where it's like low turnover, good assist to turnover ratio, solid standstill decision maker, like all that's there. So I think Tre Johnson's really good.
I think that's fair. First off, whenever you did your little breakdown motion, I saw those guns and I was like,
oh
yeah,
yeah, we're getting jacked for the draft this year. We're getting jacked for the draft this year.
I love it. But on top of just the muscle appeal that you have, Maxwell, I think that Tre is an underrated athlete as well. I mean, his ability to stay on balance on the dribble, shoot off of a multiple angles and stuff like that. But he tested like very well athletically, like max vert, everything. So I think that there's more there. I genuinely feel like the way that Texas was constructed, it just kind of forced him to be a tough shot maker. So I'm interested to see. And when I say star upside, like, I'm not saying like, Murray or Jamal Murray or anybody like that. I think that he could play off emotion a lot and be very successful. So that's kind of like where I'm looking at him. The separation may or may not be there. I think that there's so much more offensively to unearth in his game that, the coaching staff just couldn't do because of the roster construction at Texas. So I'm not going to fight you too much on that.
No, I think that's reasonable too.
I think that the concerns are real, and that's like outside of Cooper, who everybody has number one, and Dylan Harper, who the majority of everybody has in a tier unto himself. You're really projecting a lot with the rest of the top of this class. And just from what I've seen from him, the studies that I've done, how other players who kind of similar build, play type, situation, things like that, he projects just really, really well. And I value that immensely, especially on the offensive end.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting. We'll transition over to my guy now, who's sort of like opposite side of the coin, and VJ Edgecombe, where there were some similarities. I think where like you could make a real case that the system that he was in and the team construct around him didn't really allow him to weaponize what makes him most interesting. He was probably on the ball a bit more in a creation role than he was perhaps ready for in some senses, but also wasn't really an environment where the best lead guard on the team was Rob Wright, who came off the bench, and it took them a little too long to figure that out. They didn't really have any passing out of the big spots. Yeah, and he's gone now. They didn't really have any passing out of the big man spots. Like, there wasn't really a great way to set up VJ Edgecombe from Baylor, who's the player we're going to talk about next. VJ Edgecombe is I'm going to use Chuck's term, switchblade guard, which I think is like the perfect phrase for him. Like the
great descriptor.
Yeah, mid-sized guard who's like not really a point, like not super a wing, but like can do enough of both of those things. Where he measured in at 6'4", 193, which is 193 is like not insignificant either, because this kid was a stick coming out of high school. And like even by the time he played for the Bahamas pre-Olympics, you would see that body was starting to fill out. 6'7.5" wingspan, so not ideal length. And the concern with him, with what you're looking at, and I totally get the people who aren't super into Edgecombe, is that you are talking about taking somebody really high who is 6'4", who really struggles to dribble with one hand and also just like loses the ball. Like, it's not it's one of the most bizarre like handle issues I've come across, where it's not even like it's too much chip on a chip. The ball's super wide. Like sometimes he just straight up loses the ball on his drives. The other thing with Edgecombe is he was a pretty poor finisher, and the shot was just okay. Which you're like, whoa, at 6'4", like this is pretty scary. Why do you like this guy so much? I'll give you the sell. So Edgecombe is a dynamite athlete for starters. He's really great in the open floor. and posted exceptional defensive playmaking numbers. 3.8 steal rate, 2.3 block rate. It feels like every team that is contending or in the playoffs or whatever wants to add this type of guard, this Alex Caruso, Cason Wallace style guard. And I think Caruso, to me, is such an interesting test case with VJ, where Caruso was not nearly this good at any point in his college career as VJ was this year at Baylor. Usually the switchblade guard, it feels like it's guys that don't figure it out until they're older. Like a guy like Nickeil Alexander-Walker bounced around a lot. A guy like Josh Hart took a while to get to the NBA from college. A guy like Keon Ellis took a very circuitous route to the NBA. These guys tend to take a while for whatever reason. So I think for VJ to be checking so many of these boxes at such a young age makes me wonder, we know that this is a valuable type of player. Can he hit an even higher end outcome than the guys that we're sort of generally comparing him to? On top of that, draws fouls at a good rate, exceptional rebounder for a guard on both sides of the floor, especially the offensive glass, and a really good standstill passer. Still ultimately posted good assist turnover ratio numbers, despite not being the most comfortable guy going downhill and not being on the most ideal team from having guys to set up perspective. I think he's a really sharp, quick decision maker. And I think in a more simplified role, he can really thrive. And I get being concerned about drafting a guy super high when you're talking about needing to simplify the role. But I just don't think there are that many legitimate star bets in this class beyond Cooper and Dylan, where I'm oh yeah, that guy's going to be a star. So when I start to look at, what's valuable outside of that, I think this archetype, these Derek White, Drew Holiday kind of guards, that's the next best thing that I see on the table here. And I think that's why I've got VJ Edgecombe at 3. I'm also a really big believer in the shot. He just started uncharacteristically cool, but he actually shot much better against good teams. Dead eye on unguarded threes, 47% on those. Pull-up needs to come along. But with what you hear about the character with him and with what we know about how super productive, super athletic guys tend to fill out their game, I'm a bit more of a believer in him getting to those things where it's is he ever going to figure out the pull-up or whatever? I just think this guy's going to get on a court right away. It's hard to keep a guy on a bench when they can create havoc, score in transition, take possessions away from the team, hammer the glass, and just be a menace. And that's what VJ Edgecombe can do. And I do think he's going to shoot off the catch pretty quickly. Reports out of the combine were that the shot looked really good, which I know it's not him, but there were some mechanical tweaks, had more arc on the ball. I'm just buying it. I'm just buying VJ Edgecombe. I'm buying the character. I'm buying the tools. I'm buying the all-around production. And I'm hoping that I get one of those outlier outcomes. But if people are skeptical of the outlier outcomes, I can't say I blame them.
Yeah, and that's ultimately where I lie. I don't have him as low as you have Tre. I have him 5th on my board. And a lot of it just has to come down to, do I want to take a guy 3rd overall that I am almost certain is not going to be an offensive star? You know what I mean? And that's kind of where I am. I know that the athleticism is fantastic with him. The thing that I worry, though, is the size with the athleticism, with the role that he's going to play. I went through and actually wrote a piece over at NoCeilingsNBA.com about VJ Edgecombe's offensive translatability to the NBA. There is translation, right? But a lot of the players that he shared traits with were guys like Jay Crowder, who's a little bit bigger, right? The thing that is promising, though, for VJ is where he is at his age. Even though his shot wasn't great this year, he's already further along in terms of volume and efficiency than a lot of those like Jay Crowder-esque type role players that we've grown accustomed to seeing in the NBA. So he is already more advanced offensively than a lot of your favorite NBA role players. On top of that, he is a defensive nuisance and menace. I do worry, though, that the length is going to potentially be the separator in terms of how nuclear of a defensive ace that he can be on that side of the ball. But he has shown, steal rate of almost 4 and a block rate over 2. That's stupid. He shouldn't be doing that. But the thing that I will say in his favor is that the character stuff is there and the work ethic stuff is there. So if you have all that, there is a certain level of feel and safety that you can bet on with VJ, which is why I'm not plummeting him down my board. I think that he's a perfectly fine top 5 pick. I'm just, if I'm picking 3rd overall, I think personally, I want to pick a guy that at least has the shot of being a first, second option on the offensive side of the ball. And I just worry about the handle and the movement shooting. And then let's say, even though the shooting might become efficient, is he going to shoot it enough to where the other team is like, is it worth closing out on 2 or 3, VJ Edgecombe 3-point shots in a game as opposed to, 6 or 7, whatever the case might be?
Yeah. I think that's all totally fair. It's why, like, I feel like every No Ceilings War Room mock draft that we've had, I'm always like VJ at 3, and everyone's also like, I don't know about that. Like, I
there
get
are
it.
VJ guys, but
I think if we're shooting for median outcome, I love VJ at 3. And I really I can't get over the idea of like, he's so much better than so many guys in this archetype at his age. And then you hear the character stuff and it's like, man, I think he can figure it out. So
do you want to be the guy to bet against a guy like that? That's ultimately what it comes down to.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say that's like a big part of the calculation. We're going to take a quick break and we're going to hit the I believe it's the 11 through 20 group where we like both had the same guy. So we're kind of sharing kind of a sharing section. We disagreed in segment 1. Segment 2, we're going to be boys again. So stick with us. We'll be right back. All right. So we've both got 2 guys that we sort of, I guess, mutually agreed upon. Where like when we were out, we're like, yeah, well, I'm cool with one of those 2, and like we were both on that same. I'll let you take the lead. Who do you want to claim first?
Yeah, let's go with Nique Clifford, who I have 10th on my board. Where do you have him on yours?
I believe he was 13 on my final board.
Okay, so we both are very, very fond. That is not a very popular, I would say, consensus ranking among our individual big boards. So Nique Clifford out of Colorado State, the grad, kind of a wing forwardy type player, gave Colorado State some run as like the lead initiator a lot of time. Will be about 23 years old, so you're supposed to hate his guts because he's a senior citizen. Stood at about 6'5" and a quarter inch barefoot, 202 pounds with a 6'8" wingspan. Maxwell, 19 points, almost 10 rebounds, 4 assists, half a block, a steal, 50% from the floor. For the second season in a row, shot over 37% on decent volume, 77% from the free throw line. On his crazy usage, had 2.6 turnovers per game, and being a defensive stalwart, I would say, only 2.4 fouls. So very intelligent guy. Just does so much that you want to see from a player. And Maxwell, you and I talk about this all the time, but the best role players in the NBA were the guys, and high usage, high demand, contributed in a multitude of different areas on the court. And that's what you got from Nique. He had 16 of his 23 dunks came in the half court. This year, he was in the 81st percentile at the rim. 36. Go upstairs, baby. My daughter is hopping in. She's say hi. It's Charlotte. Say hi, Charlotte. She's waving to the crowd. Yeah. All right. 81st percentile at the rim, 36th percentile in at rim frequency. Shot 37.7% on 8.3 threes per 100 possession. Last year, 37.5% on 6 threes per 100 possessions. Good usage rate, got better year over year in pretty much every single category. He rebounds well, 5% offensive rebound percentage, 26% defensive rebound percentage. Steal and block rate of 2.0, while also being the load carrier for this team offensively. Maxwell, I don't know what, like, he's just not going to be a superstar, like take you off the bounce guy, but everything else outside of that, I'm fully confident in his abilities.
Yeah, I just feel like we've seen everything you could ask for him throughout his college career. Like the last year, we were talking about him sort of as this interesting, like, downhill gadget player. Like, he was one of the best drivers in the country last season. Like, his numbers on spot up 2s were outrageous because he's so fast off the line. He's got this deep counter bag. He plays bigger than his listed weight. He's listed at like 205, but like, he's strong and he gets through guys at the rim. He likes to draw fouls, very efficient inside. And then he was always a great passer, really saw the floor well when teams would run him off the line. And defensively, he was known as a playmaker last year. Last year, in a smaller role, he had a 2.7 steal rate and a 3.2 block rate. And that was a big part of the sell. If you go back and watch the NCAA tournament game last year, where they played Virginia. I think it was one of those funky, like you got to play to get into the NCAA tournament, even though you're already in the NCAA tournament things. He was making plays all over the floor. He would make these sort of like heady gambles where it's like a guy's in the mid range and I'm in the slot. And I'm going to come over from behind him and block his shot. Like some really, really crafty team defense plays from Nique last year that this year we shouldn't really see as much of because he had like a 28 usage rate. Like he had to do everything on offense this year instead of playing off Isaiah Stevens. Still, like led the Mountain West in rebounding as a wing. Drew a ton of fouls, phenomenal assist rate, and really shot the tar out of the ball this year. He went from 37.6% last year, 37.7% this year. It doesn't seem like a jump, but his volume, he went from 6 attempts per 100 possessions to 8.3 attempts per 100 possessions on a harder shot diet, doing it as the man, not having his look set up for him, going from one of the best setup point guards in the country to not really having a traditional point guard on his team. It cannot be overstated how important that leap was. And you talk to people around him and they say that Nique was just straight up like, the feedback is I got to shoot more threes and I'm going to shoot more threes. Like what else do you want? You want a guy who can do everything, a guy is going to compete, a guy who has shown a propensity to get better, and a guy who's going to listen to what you ask him to do. When you're looking at role players, that's Nique Clifford. Like you hate to say a guy like, oh, there's no chance this guy fails. You never know what situations the guy could come up in. You never know what injuries could happen, blah, 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 blah. I feel great about Nique Clifford being a very good like NBA role player wherever he ends up. I just think there's too many ways for him to impact the game. And I just buy the person based on all the intel and the fact that we've seen him like actually take these steps to get better. I got to interview him last year. I buy it. I buy the whole package with Nique Clifford. I think he's going to be a dude.
Yeah, play defense. He can do that, Maxwell. And that's what else you would see from a guy like him as he continues to get better. How about being ranked 91st percent on pick and roll sets, including passes, right? So I'm saying that he doesn't project to be a ball guy like take you off the bounce and initiate an offense. I mean, he might be the second or third best player in your team to be able to do that while also being really defensively and crashing the glass at the same time. Like there are outcomes with Nique, probably very few, but there are outcomes with Nique being, a second or third player on a team. Like I wouldn't rule that out. I also wouldn't like bet my mortgage on it, but that outcome does exist with him.
For sure. Yeah, I think that's on the table. We are now going to jump over to Cedric Coward. Man, I love Cedric Coward and I've loved him forever. He is out of Washington State, a 6'5" and a quarter wing who came in at 213 pounds with a 7'2.5" wingspan. My goodness. Absolutely love to see that. This past season only played 6 games due to injury, but 17.7 points per game, 7 boards, 3.7 assists, 1.7 blocks, and 0.8 steals, 55.7% from the field, 40% from 3, and 83.9% at the free throw line. Coward is a guy I was in on all year. I think I had him first round throughout the year. If you look at my expanding big board portions of my columns, I had him top 20 later in the cycle. I know that he was kind of out of sight, out of mind, and it feels like he rose late. But this dude's just always had a really projectable game. And like for a long time, the guy I was kind of comparing him to was Jalen Wells, where like it just seemed like this guy has enough length and functional athleticism and enough of a shot and is a good enough standstill decision maker that you can just sort of plug him out there and let him rip and he can go. But look, I think he has way more outs than people realize. I think the obvious thing is you look at him and like, is 3-and-D there? Yes, it is. He's a great mover. I think there's some like defensive point of attack stuff that can be shored up relatively easily. It's stuff that guys improve on all the time, where he just gives guys too much space, blah, blah, blah. Team defense, really strong instincts. I would especially encourage people, if you look at the tape from his sophomore year at Eastern Washington, I covered him for No Stone Unturned after his sophomore year at Eastern Washington. He was like a Javonte Green style role player back then, was like the guy I compared him to, because like he was just all over the court, always in the right spots, always mucking things up. And then he sort of had this modern flair of like, oh yeah, and he makes some nice passes too, like really sharp connective passing. And he rebounded the tar out of the ball. As he scaled up, he became more of like this knockdown shooter. and then started to take on a lot more on-ball responsibility. He had some real ups and downs with that. I think where I would push back is I've seen the people that are lower on him say, oh, like he hasn't played real teams. The only time he played a real team was Iowa and he sucked or whatever. If you watch the Iowa game, he did a tremendous job. The shot didn't fall in that game, but I actually talked to scouts after that game who were like, oh yeah, I moved him up after that game. Like, watch the game. He makes good decisions. Yeah. He plays really great defense on Peyton Sandford. Like, it is a good performance where his shot did not go in. And if you look at the games the previous season against good teams, early on in the year, they had a run where they played like Stanford, like California, I think. A couple
Ole Miss, I think, was another big one.
Where like he's scoring like 18 a game. He had a ton of turnovers in those games, but that was like the first time basically in his life that he'd ever been a lead ball handler for a team. And I don't think that's what he's going to be. Like I've said time and time again on this podcast, I don't really believe in the on-ball juice with Coward. I think he is a masterful off-ball player, which is how you end up with a guy in your top 10 when you worry about their on-ball juice. This guy had a true shooting percentage of 67.7% this past season. Unbelievable nose for cuts, stellar offensive rebounder, weirdly strong mismatch game for a guy his size. Like, he just finds ways to get efficient buckets. And when you combine that with the shot, the defensive projection, the understanding, the intellect, the character, the work ethic, the drive, the year-over-year improvement, like, this is just a guy I want on my basketball team. I think I said this in my No Stone column this year. Like, I think the floor kind of looks like Ochai Agbaji, where it's just like, oh yeah, no, he can just like run around and be an NBA player out there. Like, maybe it's not the sexiest thing in the world, but I think like he can at least be that. And then I think the ceiling, we get more into like higher end, like 3-and-D wing type of stuff, especially if he's able to figure out that on ball stuff. But I think in terms of just pure off ball, it's tough to find a better, like, quick connect the dots offensive player in this class.
And I agree with you so much. I mean, what stands out to me about how safe he is as a player is his shooting. If you look in the 22-23 season, he was in the 87th percentile in catch and shoots. The next year in the 23-24 year, 88th. This year, he was in the 84th. So you're getting a knockdown shooter with good size and length and strength. I think the fact that he's been a post-up guy a lot throughout his college career has been a lot of fun to see. And even if you're like, okay, Stephen, big deal, the guy is a post-up guy. Like, to me, it's like, okay, he might not run those exact same plays in the NBA, but I take a lot of solace in the fact that he will punish you for a mismatch that he detects, and he's just strong as all get out. I mean, 213 pounds at his size is nothing to sneeze at as an entry-level NBA body right now. He might not be like a one-for-one translation guy in that regard, and the handle might be under a little bit of scrutiny. Maxwell, I actually like the handle, I would say, a little bit more than you. And I think, but he takes it personal. Like, if you've listened to any interviews on him, is that he hates that people say that he can't handle a basketball. And he was certain that if we were going to see an improvement on his handle, it was going to be this year. That might just be good interviewing skills, which he is a fantastic interview, right? You would know that, Maxwell. Mm-hmm. But I also, just like we were talking about with VJ, I don't want to be the guy that bet against a Cedric Coward to improve the handle. I mean, we talk to people all the time, Maxwell, that the two easiest things to improve on at the next level are the shot and the handle. And I think that the shot's already there. The handle just needs to get a little bit better. I wrote about him in late May, and I ran some numbers that he put up this season. And the only other player in this class that was comparable from like an analytical profile was Con Knipple, who's getting mocked as high as 3 on mock drafts and stuff like that now. So I have Cedric 9th. I love him also. I'm glad that you took him because you have a background with him, you know, scouting him, talking to him, stuff like that. I just think that rebounding is a translatable, projectable, analytical skill that he does well. 3-point shooting is there. He blocks shots. He steals the ball. Like, my man is nasty on the defensive end too. I just think that, what else do you want from a top 10 player other than what Cedric brings to you, you know?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I just really buy the floor outcome. Like, I just think the median outcome is like really solid. And I think the guys that have that sort of like late developmental trajectory and strong work ethic tend to be the best bets to build upon that. Let's take, let's finish out the first round and then we'll do second round of draft hits for segment 3. Up next, 21 to 30 range. Who is your guy in that tier?
This is a gross range on our no ceilings NBA big board. At least
Yeah,
the last
this was
one
harder for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I went with Ryan Kalkbrenner, a player who I've famously disliked pretty much every season up until this year. The Creighton grad, big man, 23 years old, 7'1", barefoot, 257 pounds, 7'6" wingspan, 19 points per game, almost 9 boards, 1.5 assists, 2.7 blocks per game, half a steal, shot 65% from the floor, 34% from deep, and 68.1% from the free throw line. Maxwell, what stands out to me is that this guy is a 12-time defensive player of the year in college basketball.
He won Big East Defensive Player of the Year back when like Alonzo Mourning was like still in the conference.
Yeah, I think before blocks were even recorded as an NBA stat. He was 1.4 fouls per game. Maxwell, that's insane,
ridiculous.
And I think that he gets labeled as like this center block for feet type big man. But he can move, dude. Did you know that he ranked in the 99th percentile in transition?
I did not, but yeah, he can he gets up and down the floor well. He just moves a little weird. And I feel like that is a market inefficiency. It's like a guy doesn't run exactly the way you think he will. And like Walker Kessler was kind of the same thing where it's like, he looks a little bit robotic when he runs. And it's like, but is he still like getting from point A to point B pretty fast? Because if he is, I don't really care. I don't care if he's getting there and can catch the ball and dunk it. That's all I need him to do. I don't care how it looks.
Yeah, and he had a career best in assists this season, which is not great, but it went from 0.8 to 1.1, which for a guy who is thought to have been like this complete project, last season as a basketball player, taking a step up in the playmaking, I thought was a nice little tip of the cap. And Maxwell, this is something that you and I love. It's like a big man even winks an eye that he can pass a basketball. Like you and I are all over that, bees on honey in that regard. But I think that not only did he show he can pass, but he actually put the ball on the deck along the perimeter this year, just out of nowhere, dribbling outside, the block and outside the paint. It was awesome to see. So I made this joke in the war room because, Maxwell, there are people that are really high on Maxime Reynaud. And it's like, well, he's a dead eye shooter. Like he and Ryan Kalkbrenner almost had the exact same 3-point percentage this year, and Kalkbrenner is a defensive monster on top of being able to spread his game outside. And I trust him as a passer, if I'm being honest, a little bit more than Maxime Reynaud too.
I don't love the passing with Reynaud.
But the blocking, I mean, if you look at the 22 season, 8.5 block percentage, the 23 season, 5.9, the 24, 7.6, this year, 7.3. So you're that what you're getting with Kalkbrenner, and I'm just glad that he did not settle with the skill set that he had that had made him successful in college basketball. He started shooting a little bit, and it started going in, and then he also started dribbling and playmaking. So I have a hard time imagining a world where this guy just isn't like a third big in the NBA for several seasons.
That's exactly where I'm at. I think like the defensive polish is spectacular. Like he's just always in the right spots defensively, big time deterrent, even when he's not blocking shots. And then offensively, like really, really great hands and like just an underrated lob target. He's always at the top of the dunks leaderboard, and he just doesn't get talked about in that way because he moves like a weirdo. Like he just moves a little bit weird. So people don't really give him credit for being this like up and down vertical rim threat. But yeah, super, super efficient. Like everything is good. That's the other thing too, is like when he gets bumped, he's got some touch. Like he's got a nice little hook shot. I think your point about the jumper, like the volume is not crazy. Like he took 3 threes per 100 possessions. It takes him a long time.
It's tongue in cheek with comparing him to Max.
I like it. And I think that it's something that he can like be solid with if that's how you want to use him. But I think the bottom line is like when he rolls to the basket, he's going to catch the ball and he's going to dunk it really reliably. Bottom line is like the bigs who like stick around generally are guys who are like really good at defense and can dunk. Like that's really like the two things that NBA teams are most looking for, the big guy and size. He has the size. I would say I'm like a little, because like the people like that are like really analytics minded tend to rank him really high. I think he's like a really safe role player bet. I like him. Where I'm a little leery of it is like his rebounding wasn't good. And I know that like the overall Creighton team rebounding stats were good when he was on the floor. But I do think like going to the tape, like when I wrote about him earlier this year, like there are plays where he just does not work to get position. He's a little too easy to move. It does bother me that he was in school for 5 years and like never really got bigger. Like that irks me that he just did not put on the size. I think he's always going to be giving up a little something on the glass. And I do think while the ball skills were better this year, he still gets a little too sped up at times. I'm like, come on, man. Like we're in year 5. Like I want to see you be like advanced. But at the same time, like we're getting a little greedy. You know what I mean? At that point, like we're ultimately going to be asking this guy to catch the ball, dunk, play drop coverage. And he does all those things really, really well. So if you've got some rebounders around him, that's just a big that you can throw into a game and get the job done. I like Ryan Kalkbrenner a lot.
Yeah, I think that the scout is spot on. Like you kind of know exactly what you're getting. I have him like 24th, 25th on my big board. Mm-hmm. And again, it's a range of players that I'm like super thrilled about, but I just see a certain amount of safety. And he's my guy because he has been my anti guy for several years. And he just kind of won me over this year. I got to give him some cool points for that, you know?
For sure. So for mine, I'm going with Walter Clayton Jr. from Florida, another like long-term Maxwell guy. Clayton is a guy who, look, like I'm known for not liking small guards. Everyone knows that's my thing. I've liked Clayton for ages. I've liked Clayton. I wrote about Clayton when he was at Iona. I did it was the week between Christmas and New Year's. And I was like, look, views aren't going to be great. Can I write about this guard at Iona? And I got the go ahead. That's why I love writing for No Ceilings, baby. Got the go ahead on it. And I wrote about him. The biggest thing with him for me is bulky body and toughness and athleticism. Like he's a real deal athlete, like got way better at finishing inside, good dunk numbers, good rim finishing numbers, always been an exceptional shot blocker for a guard. He has those athletic tools that you want to see out of a guy who's smaller to be able to compensate, but also just that thick body where he's tough to move at the point of attack if he puts his chest on you. I think the point of attack defense needs to get better. Like I think he was a little too content, just like let guys get by him, but also he had shot blockers and good defenders by him and around him, etc. I think that kind of made it a little bit, easier to play into those tendencies a little bit. Handle isn't exceptional. And I think his decision-making process is like a little straightforward at times. I wish it was a bit more advanced, but here's the sell. I love my spreadsheets. I love my seeing how guys compare to guys who stuck in the NBA spreadsheets.
Would you say you're a freak in the sheets?
Absolutely. I'm a total freak in the sheets. One thing, so I label guys like red flag level if they have a stat that equates to like bottom 20th percentile of like guys who stuck in the NBA. Walter Clayton, 0 statistical red flags in that front. Everything was 21st percentile or better, and most of them rated out in the 60th percentile and above. He had a high usage rate, high BPM, took a ton of threes, fantastic free throw shooter. The shooting is the big thing. The shooting is what is going to butter his bread. He can shoot off of movement. He can shoot from way behind the NBA line. He can pull up off the dribble and drain a deep three. But beyond that, his self-creation handle has gotten a little bit better. He can get to his spots in the mid-range, get to his spots inside. And because that aforementioned just bulk and toughness, he's a much better rim finisher than a lot of these guards who have pretty bags and shoot a ton of threes. There's actual stuff he can do inside the arc too. And still with that big usage rate, he didn't really turn the ball over at all. So it's one of those guys where it might not be the most advanced process, but he can do it with simplicity really well. I think we're ultimately just dealing. And the other thing is too, this is another late bloomer situation. This is a guy who was a higher rated recruit in football than basketball, was not fully devoted to basketball until much later on. And that's why he's on this tremendous growth trajectory. Best player on the best team in college basketball this year. I ultimately just think, I get it, not very tall, but there's not a small guard box he doesn't check. He takes care of the ball. He's an electric shooter. He's got the size. He's got the bulk. He's going to compete on defense, and he's going to shoot a ton of threes. I just think with everything he has going for him, another tremendous character guy too. You talk to anybody that's been around this kid, media side, coaches, players, everybody loves him. I just think he's going to make it work.
Speaking on the player front, a couple seasons ago, Maxwell, when Brandon Pajinski was doing his thing out of Santa Clara, I had an opportunity to interview him, and I asked him at the time back when Walter Clayton Jr. was playing at Iona for Rick Pitino, I was like, hey, what do you like about Walter Clayton? And Brandon Pajemski had nothing but glowing things to say about him, So we've liked him for some time. He's big season for Florida this year, obviously, with the NCAA championship. I was recently asked on a show, Maxwell, who is my under the radar SGA type like athlete within this class. And for me, I imposed my own criteria, like, okay, who is somebody that I can go back and look at that I've literally heard never anybody say athleticism and Walter Clayton Jr. in the same sentence.
Yeah.
I went back and looked, dude. I mean, he had a higher max vert this year than Jeremiah Fears, Dylan Harper, Asa Newell, Nique Clifford, Cooper Flagg, and Ace Bailey. His lowest block percentage in his collegiate career was this year at 1.6 as a small guard.
For a guard. Which is high end for a guard. Yeah.
Yeah, he's over the past 3 seasons, his fewest dunk total was 5 dunks on the year, which again for a small guard is really good. If you look defensively, he had 64 stocks this year to 72 fouls committed. That's pretty neutral. Like you take that from an offensively tilted player like him. He ranked in the 63rd percentile at the rim this year while being a largely perimeter oriented player. So when he got there, he knew how to finish. He used his length, only +2 wingspan, but he knows how to use his frame really well. He ranked in the 77th percentile as a pick and roll ball handler, 74th, including passes. Here's what stands out to me when I touched on the SGA type athleticism thing, because SGA isn't like your traditional like Michael Jordan, LeBron James explosive athlete, right? He's slippery, he's bendy, and he has great balance and core strength. And that's what I see with Walter Clayton Jr. He was in the 89th percentile on dribble jumpers, shot 37% on 195 dribble jumper threes. So the ability to start on a dime, the ability to rise up in motion, straighten out his body and get into his frame and hold the shot longer than the defender can contest the shot. That's SGA-esque type athleticism that I was just pleasantly surprised when I went back and devoted some time to Walter Clayton to look at his athleticism. I was even more blown away because you look at him as just like this offensively gifted guy who's just going to be a shot chucker. So, some people might look at him that way. He's so much more than that. He competes on the defensive end. He rebounds decently well. And his body control is just pristine.
Yeah, and I think the point about him like rising up is so key to every element of his game, like getting that elevation on those shots, and then also like getting those contests defensively. Like he's one of those guys who like I love guys that really spring when they contest, and he's one of those guys where he just gets easy off his feet and it looks like he's floating through the air. Obviously, like the higher end comps, like you hear Fred VanVleet a lot because like body type wise, they're pretty similar. I feel like Peyton Pritchard is another name I've seen a lot with him. But I think even if we dial it back, like I just look at the role like Ty Jerome played for the Cavs this year. It's like that's a role he could play. Like he could be your bench sniper and just like come in. And the reason Ty Jerome was another guy who's like a little peskier defensively than you would expect in college. Like I think that's another role that he can play. Like I just think there's a couple more ways for him to make this work than most smaller guards. But I think the fact that he's like an elite shooter, it's like, come on. Like I think at least Seth Curry is in there. You know what I mean? Like Curry was another guy who wasn't the most dynamic handler coming out, but managed to make it work. And I think Clayton has all
some Cole Anthony type outcomes for him, or a Kobe White might be in that mix as well. So, I mean, floor spacing guards who can play well off of other ball handlers and, other people who want to put the ball in the basket. He keeps the floor open for everybody, and he's a reliable knockdown 3-point shooter. So if he goes to a team that needs a point guard, like he can do that. Or if he goes to a team that has the offense flow through their wings and their forwards, even better. He can make the court so much more wide open for them.
For sure. We're going to take one more break, and then we're going to come back. We're going to hit what all the sickos come for, the second round, the undrafted tier guys. So stick with us. We'll be right back. Even your favorite player in the 30 to 45 range, it's the guy, Alijah Martin, who I think everyone has their guys, and we do our mock drafts where we get to a certain point and every single pick that person is like, what about this guy? And yours is Alijah Martin, where it feels like we have to like pick 24-ish, and you're just like, how about Alijah Martin here? Give people the sales pitch on Alijah Martin, who is a 6'1" and a quarter guard from Florida. But again, bulky body, 208 and a 6'7.5" wingspan.
Yeah, another impressive athlete, like tested right there with Walter Clayton Jr. in the combine. Biggest thing that I love about him, this is some coach talk coming your way, so if you need to plug your ears, I understand. He's a great teammate, first and foremost. Like my favorite story about any player this year was when Florida was in the, coming from the SEC tournament run, going into March Madness. Alijah got with the student manager and was like, hey, can you help me with this project? I want to collect a bunch of pictures from where the players on this team were before this year at Florida. And it had the Iona, Walter Clayton Jr., other players on this team. And he said, don't forget where you come from, right? And this is a guy who's from the state of Mississippi, who was another two-sport athlete, just like Walter Clayton Jr., played football really well, had very low number of college offers, goes to FAU, plays for Dusty May. So athletic and defensively gifted that he doesn't even get a chance to try to run point guard. He plays the 4 and the 3 for Dusty May at 6'1", and he helps this team eventually reach the Final Four, still playing that type of role. Reaches the Final Four, enters the transfer portal with a do not contact tag because he knew exactly where he wanted to go. Doesn't get to be a lead guard on Florida because of Walter Clayton Jr., but he does get to improve. He does get to have the ball in his hand a little bit more, and he showed that he is capable of more. Averaged over 14 points per game, almost 5 rebounds, over 2 assists, 1.5 steals, shot 35% on his three-point shot this year on over 11 attempts per 100 possession. He's never had a season, Maxwell, that he shot fewer than 11.1 threes per 100 possession. And he's had multiple seasons as a very good three-point shooter. Even one year was 38%. So he's shown that even though he's not like a ball-dominant guard, he can still shoot well from deep. He is a hound on the defensive end. In the past 4 seasons, he's never recorded a steal percentage under 2. He had 66 stocks. This is my favorite defensive stat from him. 66 stocks generated to only 54 fouls committed. That's playing and defending in the SEC up the lineup against some of the more tough shot makers within that conference. And that just blows my mind. He's never, over the past 4 seasons, Maxwell, to speak to his athleticism a little bit more, never had a season with fewer than 10 dunks. This year he had 9 dunks in the half court out of his 29 total. I know that he is not going to be like a take you off the bounce guy. Like, I get that. But look at the NBA Finals right now. Everyone's getting ready to watch Game 7 here shortly. Look at the guards who aren't lead ball handlers but can defend, who can rebound, who, even though he's not like the best ball handler, assist turnover ratio of 1.5, so a good decision maker with the ball, he could do so much of what we're watching in the NBA Finals right now, Maxwell. And that's not the sexiest pick or pitch for a guy, but I have him 27th on my big board, 28. I have him over Lee McNeely, which might get me fired. We'll see. But you gotta have
guts though. Like we were talking about this the other day. Like if you believe in a guy, you gotta do it. Like the first like year or so that I did this, like the biggest thing that always killed me was, and it's like, oh man, I missed on that guy because like I put a guy I didn't believe in him ahead of him. Yeah. Like I'm tired of missing that way. Like if you like a guy, rank them where you think they're gonna be.
Yeah, and again, like I love him, but I'm realistic. Like I don't have him way up against everybody, but I just look at everything that he does. I talk to people that are close to him that are in his camp. He's getting a lot of great feedback. He might not get taken as high as where I have him on my board, but I just think redraft wise, like people are going to look at him and he's going to be like, why on earth did this guy look at, Andrew Nembhard was a early 2nd round pick. I think that you could see similar things from Alijah Martin in terms of where he was taken to where he ultimately would end up being taken in a redraft.
Yeah, I think Elijah's really interesting. Like he's a guy where I feel like I probably ended up with him too low. I love the frame. I love the tenacity. I love the toughness. I just can't which is really hard for me when I don't think a guy is like a point guard at that size. And I don't like with Clayton, the differentiator between the two is just like the on-ball juice. But like what we were talking about with Alijah Martin the other day is it's like guy who defends, guy with a pro body, guy who takes a ton of threes, and guy who gets a lot of dunks. And it's just like that profile alone. It's like, do I want to
rebounds well?
Yeah. Do I want to put like other guards ahead of that? Like maybe not. Like maybe it's just like the role is going to be complementary anyway for a lot of these guards. And that's like, do I just take the guy who's way better at that stuff and maybe look past the fact that he never had this huge usage role in college or anything like that. Like he's a tricky one for me. He's the guy that like, I feel like all the feedback I keep hearing is good. And I just never saw him in that light. And I've really struggled with him throughout this cycle. The guy that I'm really into in this range, I feel like is my guy in the No Ceilings mock drafts that I'm bringing up. And like, they're ready to kill me today.
They were ready to trade you.
Yeah, they were trying to trade me to other media outlets. Like, is that I like Noah Penda a lot. So Noah Penda is a guy that like I liked throughout the year, and I could never really commit. And then I kind of did like your thing with Alijah Martin, where I'm just like, he's 17th. Like I just like put him in a certain spot where I'm like, we're doing it. Okay, so Noah Penda, he played for Le Mans in France. He is a forward. He's 6'7" and a quarter with a barely sub 7 foot wingspan, and he weighed 242 pounds. So he is a big, bulky dude who really knows how to play basketball. It's like ultimately the biggest thing with Noah Penda. So Penda had this stellar assist to turnover ratio, and he's a really good decision maker. Like if you chase him off the line, he has like a bit of a handle. Like he's got these dribble moves that he can go to. He can sling the ball on the go. He sees the court really well. If it's a 0.5 pass, it's always on the money. There'll be more reversals and like things you just don't normally see from guys who are like 20, 21 years old. In that context, he's 20 and a half. He just really knows how to play basketball. The big question for him offensively is like, is he going to shoot? So on spot up threes this year, he was 64.2%, which is fine historically for a forward coming into the NBA. Like that is a middle of the pack forward catch and shoot, like sort of 3-point percentage. It was actually, 35.6% off the catch. Most of his threes were unguarded, and he actually shot worse on the unguarded threes than the guarded ones. And I'm kind of hoping that that's food left on the table and that he's going to eat a little bit more on those unguardeds in the NBA. And then all of a sudden everything else can come to fruition. What is that everything else? Extremely high level defensive playmaking, gets a tons of blocks and gets a ton of steals because he always knows where to be. He's always in the right positions at the right time. And he can also just use his body to force guys into mistakes. When you're 242 pounds, you can really get up on a dude, make him uncomfortable and force him to turn the ball over. So this past season, he had a 2.5 steal rate and a 3.7 block rate. He was a really great rebounder on both sides of the ball as well. Really knows how to cut, draws a ton of fouls. The big issues for him are just like, do you think he's going to shoot or not? And if you don't, then it's really tricky because that leads in the second issue, which like north-south burst in the half court, very poor. Like bad transition numbers too. Like if it is a run straight forward predicament, he's not really great. He's good laterally. Like he's pretty agile side to side. He can get up okay. But he really struggled to finish at the rim, and he didn't generate a lot of dunks because it just takes him a really long time to get to the rim when he's run off the 3-point line. And that was the biggest thing that frustrated me when I wrote my column about him this year was like, I wish there was just like, I wish you could mishmash him and a Thiero and make like one mega if he shoots it prospect.
Like, I like how you didn't match him with someone who's just, he's going to be a shooter.
No. Like that would be like my ideal situation. But yeah, it's just like really choppy downhill footwork. But I think like the steal and block rate stuff combined with the rebound and combined with the assist turnover, just like on paper meshed with the size and just watching the film and seeing how well this guy knows how to play basketball. Like he is a jump shot away from being like, he's not going to shoot it as well as Grant Williams shot it, but it's like that body type. And if you knew Grant Williams is going to be like this exceptional decision maker and like a much better, like the defensive playmaking is going to be way better, I think that is just like a dude who's around forever and a guy that like would probably play on every playoff team. And I think like Penda is knocking on the door of being that. I've gotten to a point where like if he shoots it guy, as long as they check all the other boxes where it's like playmaking, defense, rebounding, like I'm just going to rank him high because if you look at the last couple drafts, like the things that hold the most value and the guys who tend to work out the best, flunk out of the league the least, and hit the most, it's forwards who can play both ways that are like 6'7" and above. And I just can't get over that idea with guys like a Thiero and also Noah Penda, who is my guy that we have projected in our second round. Personally, I am much higher. I think he's like a mid-first kind of guy for me.
And I respect the convictions that you're sticking with him. I personally have him kind of in like I think I have him either 32nd or 33rd. So I'm not like out on him as a player by any means. I do worry about the offense though, but he is a funky guy and I love me some funk, dude. He had over 40 steals, over 30 blocks on the year, only 70 fouls committed. Good decision maker. You spoke to 91 assists to 61 turnovers. The shooting is like, I'm not out on the shot. I think I worry. Fine. I think the efficiency will get there. I just worry about the volume of shots that he would take at the next level. I'm more concerned about the finishing stuff, though. I mean, he was only in the 42nd percentile at the rim, and he was only in the 29th percentile on non-dunk shots at the rim, too. So if I got a guy who's spotty shooting, I worry about the finishing to a certain level. Really, I think the only thing that you could do with him is to have the offense flow through him, and then you got to be at a certain level on the other side of the ball to make that stuff pan out, right? So that's where it gets a little tricky for me, but I will say that he ranked in the 79th percentile on cuts and in the 78th percentile on putback. So, I mean, this is – some people talk about him like he is just a slug out there, and the dude can move. Like, there are certain contexts where he does pop off of the screen. It's just like how you said, that north-south movement. He takes a little bit to get it going. He's a like Juggernaut almost. You know, once Juggernaut gets moving, like you can't stop him. Penda's kind of that same way. He's just interesting to me, man. Like I liked how Dirty Dancer put in the chat. He said that if he shoots a little bit, I could see him in a Kenrich Williams type of mold. And Kenrich Williams went undrafted, right? And is playing significant minutes in the finals. So I like Penda a little bit. I do respect him in the range that you have him. I think that that's gutsy, man, and I'm glad that you're holding true to your conviction.
Yeah, I like him. Up next in the 46 to 60 range, you've got Hunter Sallis, a guy that we've disagreed about on the pod. I'll go do you want me to go negative first, and then you can give the sales pitch?
That sounds good.
I think that might be a good way to approach this range. Yeah. So my thing with Sallis is like I just don't think he's like. I don't think there's like one area where I'm really sold on him as an NBA player. Like I feel like he's one of those guys that's just like a little bit below where I want him to be across the board, paired with like a not great frame in terms of like where he came in weight wise. And I'm just a little scared off by the downtick in the shot this past year. But I recognize that most people have him way higher than I do. And I know that you've kind of always been in, and you probably watched more of his tape at Wake this year than I did because of that. So what is the sales pitch on? Yeah. And what is the conviction that has you so in on Hunter Sallis relative to consensus?
Well, yeah, I mean, I liked him a lot last season when everybody thought it was cool to like Hunter Sallis. And he could be a cautionary tale of going back to work on your game when you have like projected to be like a top 35 type pick, like especially with NIL and stuff like that and getting pulled to different places based on dollar signs. Like Sallis could be a cautionary tale. I know no ceilings. We've had him on our board, but there are a lot of places that don't have him being drafted. I do worry about his size. He hasn't really beefed up at all throughout his entire college career. So I do understand that. I've heard it. I've actually brought this up on several different shows, but I want to bring it up here. The reason why I feel like Sallis' 3-point shot went down and everything else was actually really good analytically for him, I would say, or at least maintained. He played on a team last year, Maxwell, that ranked 40th in 3-point efficiency last year with more talent on the team. This year, they were 359th in 3-point efficiency. So,
which is quite a bit worse than 40th for the people who are not analytics people that are listening.
Yeah.
So,
by my quick math, that's
way worse than 40th. Yeah.
That's what 319 spot difference. I have a hard time placing that all at the feet of Hunter Sallis. You know, he's the hub on this team. He's like the guy. So selling out on his 3-point shot, where last year on a better team, a much more like organizationally it made sense team, he shot 40%, right? So this year he recorded a career best in assist percentage at 18.1, and he turned it over very little on a very high usage rate of 26.8. Rebounded the ball on the defensive side at a career best level at 14.4. He dunked this year more than he ever has, 22 dunks, 7.5 court. He was in the 74th percentile at the rim, and he was more efficient this year on his twos at 54.7% than last year. He also drew more fouls this season than ever before at 148, and he ranked in the 84th percentile running pick and roll sets. So I understand that the 3-point number is gross, right? But with guys like Cam Jones, we've contextualized, he lost Oso Ighodaro and Tyler Kolek. We contextualized Liam McNeely and given him all the passes in the world. He is like a shooter who can't shoot this year.
Yeah.
Like, why can we not do the same thing with Hunter Sallis?
No, that's totally fair. That's a totally fair point.
Like, that's it. That's
No, I think that's totally fair and totally reasonable. So for my guy, I went with Viktor Lakhin from Clemson, a 6'11.5" big with a 7'1.5" wingspan, 252 pounds. Do you want to make the anti-Viktor Lakhin case? You actually are the guy who like pulled me up on Viktor Lakhin, but I'm curious if you want to make like the anti-Lakhin case before I get into my.
How dare you do this to me? I actually told you I almost took him, but I figured that you would want him out of anybody else in this range. I've been a Viktor guy for a while throughout the year, and Corey was actually a guy that put me onto him previous years. The injury has shaken my confidence, right? What's the injury? Is it a
shoulder?
I thought it was a leg. I could be wrong.
He's had a lot of them throughout the years. So the injury had me shaken in my ranking a little bit, but I still have him in a draftable range. I think the biggest thing for him is like, how strong is he really going to be at the next level? Where in Cincinnati early on, he played a little bit more nasty. He was a little bit more like meat grinder, so to speak, in the post and on the defensive end. As he has gotten more offensively advanced, you can see that his game has got more finesse based, and he's steered away from like the mean streak I would say he's had at other moments throughout his career. So, is the 3-point shooting going to be real at the next level? I think that's a fair question to ask. And then, how concerned are you with his injury history or the proclivity to get injured? Yeah, I'm really worried about the injury history. I would say that's the one where I'm just like, man, I hope everything's all right medically. I would say the other thing with him too is like there's just not a ton of natural like explosiveness, athleticism. Yeah. Like wasn't great at the rim this year. Always been a really low dunks guy. Like a good functional defensive leaper, but offensively, it's just not something that he does. So he's going to have to be a skilled big. And then the question there is like, is he going to be consistent? Like he's a guy like you look at the point totals and they're kind of up and down, which like part of that is a function of Clemson being sort of a spread the wealth system. But it's still concerning. I think where I ended up with Viktor Lakhin is like a guaranteed contract to your guy is
love it.
I think that he is good at all the important stuff of being an NBA big. He can really pass the ball, which if you told me 2 years ago that I was on a podcast talking about how good of a passer Viktor Lakhin was, it would have blown my mind. Now, when I did him for No Stone, like I say, like this guy's like a black hole. Like he never passed. Like he had like the Gigi Jackson, like microscopic assist rate scenario working. And like with at least with Gigi had sauce. So Viktor Lakhin was like, oh no, here comes the worst contested hook shot you've ever seen. Lakhin figured out how to move the ball and like he got really good at passing out of the top of the key. He sees the floor really well. He had like genuinely a fantastic assist rate and assist turnover ratio while really taking good care of the ball, playing in like a modern offensive system this year. Also went from being a non-shooter to a guy who hit a good percentage on good volume for a big man. And he's always been a really scheme versatile defender because he has that length and he maximizes it. He's always playing long. Like when we complain about guys like Maxime Reynaud or Tommy Ivisic, like what we're always talking about is like their hands are always down or they're never in the right spots. They're not corralling properly. Like they let guys get too close to the rim without contesting. Like
play too low on the block. Yeah.
Yes. Lakhin is always using his size to his advantage. And it allowed him to post a really good block rate in his first season where he was a true center. Because at Cincinnati, he was kind of playing the 4 alongside Aziz Bandiago, which was never just a natural fit. But still, he's always been like a really high steals big guy too, because he's really good out and on an island. He has this very fluid agility and ability to move his feet side to side, and he doesn't get shaken. And he still has this really nice discipline guarding the ball. Like, I just think Viktor Lakhin is like the perfect like 5-out kind of like bench big, where it's like he can come in, he can knock down shots, he can make good decisions, he can guard in whatever scheme you want him to, and he's going to rebound and it's going to be fine. Like, I just think he does all the things you could want out of a center with a degree of like reliability, and like he's not going to do anything stupid. That I just think he's an NBA center. And obviously, like, the injury now, the injuries in the past, like, if he falls out of this draft, like, this is a guy I would have given a guaranteed contract to if he was healthy. Like, I'm all over him with a two-way if that's on the table now that he's injured. Like, most guys on a two-way aren't going to work out anyway. So if I've got one that I'd love to give a guaranteed contract to and I can just get him on a two-way roster spot, like, sign me right up. So that's my Viktor Lakhin love fest. Let's move to the undrafted free agent range. This is a guy that
real sicko territory.
Yeah, this is a guy that you've been big on. Lead it off with your UDFA target of choice.
Yeah, Cameron Matthews out of Mississippi State, the grad. He's a forward, 23 years old, about 6'5" and 3/4 barefoot, 235 pounds. So NBA ready body right out the rip. 6'11" wingspan, averaged 7 points, 7 boards, over 3.5 assists, over half a block, over 1.5 steals. Shot 51% from the floor, only 24% from the 3-point line, and only 50% from the free throw line. 2.4 turnovers per game, 2.8 fouls per game. This is one guy, Maxwell, who just combines strength, athleticism, and feel without a real sense of touch at all, right? So that's that's the negative aspect of him, is that it's going to take big hopes and wishes for him to be a shooter. But man, if you could bring in a guy off the bench who you can trust to just essentially do literally everything else, like, there's utility in that. I love him so much, man. As a tough forward, he actually led Mississippi State in assists this year. He had a 1.5 assist turnover ratio, which is a career best. Along with the feel, he's an absolute dog on the defensive end. He's only had one season in the past 4 with the block percentage under 3, and that year it was only at 2.9. Okay. Yeah. Only one season in the past 4 with the steals percentage under 4, and that season it was 3.4, so still pretty good. This year he had 105 stocks to only 94 fouls committed as a defensive just monster of a man. He's never had a season under 8 on the offensive rebound percentage, and he's only had one season with a defensive rebound percentage under 16. That was as a junior, and it was 15.3, so still pretty good. He had 26 dunks converted last season. 14 came in the half court. Unfortunately for him, though, is the offensive side. The best way that he plays is as a cutter, where he ranked at the 73rd percentile. His second best offensive play type was at putbacks, right? So kind of limited guy. Very strong, though. Very good finisher. He's going to be a transition type of a player. And again, like, just someone you can put out there, asked to give you tough minutes on the defensive end and still have the requisite amount of feel to make a smart play with the ball in his hand. If he goes to a system where he could just be, in the dunker spot, I think that he could be a significant contributor within a rotation, despite not being the high touch type guy.
Yeah. I think that I obviously worry about where he scores, because he's just like a historically like low points per game guy. But something we were talking about the other day is like, on the margins of this class, where like it's not a deep class at all. Like last year, you get out to closer to 100, and there's still guys where it's like, I could see it. Like this year, I don't, to be frank, with a lot of guys. like the guys like Cam Matthews just ended up way higher on my board, because it's like, all right, is this guy like an everyday rotation player in the NBA? Probably not. But like, if I play him, can I get some sort of advantage over the other team on a given night? Like, yeah. And like, at a certain point, I'd rather just try on the like funky dude that's a little bit unorthodox and can maybe give me something on a given night than just a dude who's a worse version of an average NBA player. Like, I just don't know what we're doing with some of those guys where it's like, okay, like I want to name names. So, like, there's some guys I'm just like, yeah, this guy's just like plainly not good. Like, why wouldn't I just like try Cameron Matthews instead and see if we can find a way to weaponize like this unorthodox combination of like massive size, defensive production, and ball skills and see where it leads me. Like, I'm totally with you on Cam.
That's the thing is like, he's also like NBA ready frame. He's not like one of these hypothetical guys that like, okay, I maybe can stash him or maybe he's gone after this next year. Like he's a good athlete and he's strong. So that gives him a quicker runway to be able to play in an NBA game.
Yeah. And I think a lot of like what we're saying applies to my guy as well, which is Dylan Cardwell from Auburn. Like another guy who's like does not score. He scored like 5 points per game. Like I don't think he ever averaged more than 6 a game in college. And I'm still just convinced he's better than most third bigs in the NBA. If you were going to pull up Dylan Cardwell on Basketball Reference right now, I'm going to warn you, the flaws are bad. You can never play him at the end of the game because he shot below 33% at the free throw line this last year. He fouls constantly. Part of that, I think, is roll. I do think that's partially roll. Like, I do think if you scale back the roll, he will foul a little bit less because, like, Auburn was always just like, be aggressive, go out there and do it. We can play Broom at the 5. It's fine. But everything else he does really well. Like, defensively, he doesn't really impact the glass as much as he should. But Cardwell he's a little undersized, like height and lengthwise, but he's so strong and athletic. I don't really think it matters.
I thought he was so much taller than whenever I finally like went through and read like the listed height. I was like, there's no way he's like this small.
So yes, we came in a hair under 6'10" with like a 7'3" wingspan and like a 9'1" standing reach, which is like small ball 5, like TJD measurements, but he is 261. So he's bulky and strong, and he is so athletic. Like the entire time he's been at Auburn, like he's just been one of those guys watching games and you're like, oh my gosh, like who is that dude that's moving like a pro out there? He is super scheme versatile defensively because he flies off the floor. He's bigger than a house and he can really move his feet out on the perimeter. Also a big guy who gets a lot of steals because of that lateral agility combined with like this guy bumps you. You're picking up your dribble. You're losing that thing. Like guys can't control the ball against him on the perimeter. He's a stellar passer. And he's also just an exceptional lob target. Like this dude flies. He can get through anybody at the rim. And again, like when you narrow it down to like, what is a third big going to be asked to do? It's like rebound, play defense, don't turn the ball over, dunk it. Dylan Cardwell's way better at that than a lot of guys. And he's probably not going to get drafted because he's a 23-and-a-half-year-old who doesn't score the ball and has never scored or taken on a big role and he fouls a lot. The refinement stuff to me is like we always talk about, like we'd rather take the guy where it's like, I've seen you do too much, now scale that back for me.
Yep.
I know he didn't score a lot, and traditionally, like, those are the guys that we're talking about. But defensively, where he's at his best, I think we can just cut those fouls a little bit, still have a big guy that steals the ball way more than most, protects the rim extremely well, get him a little bit more active on the glass in that end. And then offensively, he's just going to be a nightmare because he's going to be able to stretch the floor out because of his passing. He's going to be a tremendous lob guy. He's going to be a force on the offensive glass. They're going to have to put a body on him every single time. I just think between the athleticism, the size, and the understanding of how to play basketball, he's going to find a way to be in the league for longer than people think.
He's like a diet Yannick Niederhauser in a sense, right? Like where a lot of the same things that apply.
So much better. Like I think with Yannick, like he's so much bigger and like more athletic that like it's really easy to see the simple stuff with him. With Cardwell, it's like he might not be that big, and like the free throw thing is like a dire issue. It's really bad. But like there's passing stuff that Niederhauser doesn't have.
Yeah, and I think that gives him a little bit of an edge. Like I would draft him, right? Like there are teams that need big man depth, especially in the second round, that like if you're getting a guy who is an instant lob threat, who's going to set super duper hard screens, I mean, his ability to anchor the team on both ends of the floor is the reason why Janai Broom got to play the 4 at Auburn, right? Yep. Which I think is a major like unheralded aspect of his game. 47 dunks in the half court with a role that was like very like you eat whenever we tell you you're hungry type thing. Ranked in the 98th percentile at the rim, 95th in at rim frequency. Got offensive rebounds at a very good clip. He was in the 70th percentile as the roll man. So even when he's rolling, you got a guy who has playmaking vision. You could ask him to, paint the corners a little bit on the short roll, and he could do that, right? Block shots incredibly well, 7.4 block percentage, 2.4 steals percentage. Despite being very aggressive and fouling a lot, Maxwell, he had 84 stocks to only 91 fouls committed. I was expecting that number to be grossly outmatched by the fouls committed, but it was still relatively close. So even though he's like a high risk, high reward type defender, he's about net neutral when it comes to, reward versus consequence. So I think that is fantastic. The role is going to be, I'll say it in quotations, is going to be simple for him because it's still very hard to be a big man in the NBA today. But the role is simple, and which I think gives him a clear path to being a contributor at some degree within an NBA team, whether that be two-way, whether that be E10, work your way up from the G League, whatever the case might be. Like there is a path for him to be a contributor.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think that he's going to manage to make this work in some capacity, or at least get a cup of coffee, if nothing else. So
for sure.
That does it for our guys. Before we wrap up, again, please buy the draft guide. $15, NoCeilingsNBA.com. Like I said, there's like 4 pages of content on 100 guys. There is so much content in there. Synergy data that's proprietary, that you can't find anywhere else unless you got a Synergy account. There are stat breakdowns.
Los Angeles Lakers.
Player. What an amazing week that was. Player comps, you name it. Strengths, weaknesses.
Sell me this pen.
Info, all that's in there. So go buy the draft guide. Stephen, what have you got cooking up in the lab?
I have an interview that I just did with Chaz Lanier earlier today.
Yeah. What a day that has been.
Yeah, I had to leave the mock draft to do an interview and then go back and do another mock draft. It was a lot of fun. And then come back and do the show tonight.
Yeah.
Very busy Sunday, but I'm grateful for it because, business is good. So that's going to be coming out. It's just going to be the video feed. I've submitted my last, individual piece for the year, which again, bittersweet. Last one was like a piece called Then and Now, where I compared where I had people ranked on my big board in December, which was my first board due to the nature of my job. And then my most recent player submissions that I have for No Ceilings, and give an explanation on the top 40 in there. So long piece, but it was a lot of fun to do. Maxwell, we got a big week for No Ceilings next week. We have a what we would do mock draft. We have a big board the next day. The following day, we have an Intel-based piece or an Intel-based mock draft. And then we are also doing we're doing both nights of the NBA draft, where we're going to be on air half hour before, doing pregame, walking people through prospects, our instant reactions, what we would do at certain places for picks, what Intel might be telling us. It's just a full-blown fun week of No Ceilings, where we're going to end this year off on a bang, dude.
Yeah, and we're going to be all over the place as well on other podcasts. We're collaborating with Bryce Simon and Pistons Pulse to do a podcast with them. You did the Chaz Lanier interviews, like you mentioned, so that'll be coming down the pike. I'm going to be on Ball Monday. I think there was something else that we were all doing that I'm forgetting.
Tuesday, I'm going to
right after this. What do you have going on?
So actually, this past weekend, I was on CLNS, the Garden Report for Boston. I did that show with Bobby Manning. That was a lot of fun. And then Stephen over at PHNX Sports, I'm going to be on his show on Tuesday. So
see us all these places. We're doing the rounds. So go check it out everywhere. Let people know that No Ceilings is where it's at. So again, buy the draft guide, mock drafts, big boards, all that stuff every day in No Ceilings NBA, and join us for the live stream of the actual draft. We will see you all next week with the recap podcast. Until then, we'll see you guys later.
Much love, y'all.